Hello, everyone. This is Hua, welcoming you back to my storytelling channel. First of all, a very Merry Christmas to all of you, near and far, no matter where you are. I want to take this time to wish you all a beautiful and safe holiday with your loved ones. Today, I am going to be sharing an original story I wrote called The Emperor's Concubine for your enjoyment. And by next week, I will release the full chapter 1. Today is a sneak peek into what will come.
기다렸어요. 오랜 시간을 밤이 지나고 빛이 쏟아지길 삶이라는 건 답이 없었고 하루하루가 버거웠던 날들
The castle walls held an eerie glare as Captain of the Guard Easton rode on his horse toward the entrance. The torches were lit, and the flames were dancing in the wind, reminding how wickedly cold it had gotten with the 10th month of the year. As he neared, the men-at-arms parted and began to open the drawbridge, letting him through. The horse neighed, bringing his legs up as he made the final jump through to the dirt ground of the palace grounds. "Easton returns!" voices shouted as he steadied the horse and began riding toward where the crowd gathered. Easton stopped his horse short of the entrance and jumped off, handing the reins to the master's stable, and rounded the animal when the emperor made his entrance down the stairs. Easton dropped to one knee and greeted with glee. "Emperor Lionel, your servant greets you with longevity to life." Emperor Lionel smiled, and his handsome face glowed as he walked down the stairs. "Rise, Easton. Walk with me." He rose and fell into step with the emperor as they began walking toward the pavilion of the east. "Tell me of your travels to home," Lionel said as he adjusted the sleeve on his black tunic. "I should hope you found a maiden to wed." Smiling, Easton replied, "Your Majesty, maidens are for hopeful men who serve no one. I serve only you." Laughing, Lionel said, "My, you certainly have learned a word or two to mend my heart and soul. If you are looking for merits, I should give it." "Your Majesty, the things I wish for are merely just your contentment." They reached the pavilion, and Easton removed the letter arrangement from his sleeve. He held it before the emperor and bowed his head. "Your Majesty, my travels this time led me to a coast far from the palace walls. There, I exchanged arrangements for marriage for your sons in the future, but the lord of the city wanted none other than you. This is a painting of a maiden from their town, who they believe will be a great asset to our kingdom." Lionel took the painting from him and opened it. The gentle face of a maiden looked back at him with soft curls that framed her face. He looked up at Easton and smiled. "What name do I call her by?" "Her name is Genevieve, and the magic comes in her hands as she is a healer. She was raised by an old shaman and has been pure of heart and soul." A shaman raised her, huh? She comes with healing hands?" "Yes," Easton replied. "Did you see her when you went there?" Shaking his head, he replied, "No, I did not." "And if I were to refuse?" Easton bowed his head. "Military support will withdraw, and silence on many borders from trappers who trade. I understand your Majesty's decision made a decade ago, but I deliver the message to you firsthand on the hope that you will understand." Lionel smiled and reached out a hand to touch the cheek on the painting, and then he looked up. "Send word, Easton, to have her come here for a proper visit. I shall speak to the Empress tonight, and we shall send an envoy to bring her. If it is my hand they seek for marriage, then my hand it will be." "Consider it done, your Majesty." The bedroom was warm and comforting as Lionel entered where the smell of jasmine hit his nostrils. Sitting in the large basin of jasmine-filled waters was his wife and empress, Paloma, who sat with the water up to her shoulders, her black hair piled high up on her head. He walked to her and laid a hand on her shoulder, gently waking her up. She made a small noise of awakening, and he knelt down beside her while dipping his hand into the water. "Your Majesty," she purred almost, "you are late in coming tonight. What kept you?" "Political meetings," he whispered. She rolled her eyes almost. "Political meetings, state affairs. What must I do to make your eyes turn solely to me, Your Majesty? Must I strip naked and stand before your prime ministers to gather your attention?" Laughing, he replied, "If you were to do that, I am afraid that the entire world would see what a jealous man I would become. I implore you to keep your body as a temple for me." Paloma smiled and turned around, her lips catching his for a brief moment before she leaned against the basin and looked up at him with her dark eyes. "Something bothers you. Tell me." He took a deep breath. "A harem here in our palace walls." Paloma's face paled, and she turned away. "I thought, when we wed a decade ago, a harem was promised not to be built by your late father as long as I gave you sons. Do we not have 4 strapping sons in the palace halls who will one day grow to lead?" Lionel took a deep breath and touched her cheeks. "Apologies, my empress, but the state affairs are pounding on my doors. If I do not agree, military support will cease, and so will trapper trades." Paloma rose from the water and wrapped a towel around herself. She came to him as he stood and took his hand. "Your Majesty, a hard position the state has put you in to build a harem for your kingdom. As a woman, do I even dare to go against their own thoughts? And what will I get out of this if I were to beseech you to reconsider?" Lionel reached out and took her hand in his, rubbing his fingers over her knuckles lightly. "My empress, you stand above all who dares to enter this palace wall. Your word will have the final hold to everything, and if argued, punishment will be yours to hand out." Paloma turned away and picked up a robe to wrap around herself. She let her hair down and fluffed it as she turned around to face him. "I have never wanted a harem. I have just wanted you, Your Majesty. I already share you with the state affairs and political meetings. Now I must share you with another woman who will bore you heirs. How do you expect me to take this news, Your Majesty?" Lionel took her hand and gently pulled her toward him, his eyes never leaving hers. "You are dearest always to me, my lady, no matter who may come into the palace walls seeking a hand to warm my bed. The thought of you will never be far from me, and the truth is that if I had any say in this, I would deny it completely. But I cannot, for I still require their military powers. Forgive me, my lady. I have never wanted to hurt you." She pulled her hand away. "You do not want to hurt me. What do you call this?" "Why must we fight over this?" "Because it is something I cannot control," she cried with heated anger. "Once this harlot comes waltzing into the palace walls, I will be forgotten by you. Her flesh is young and supple, which I am not, and she will become competition." Lionel shook his head, and a smile graced his face. "No, my empress. Never will she be able to compete with you. You are everything I hold dear, and more so you own my heart. No one can take that place but you." Remember your words, Your Majesty. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed that little sneak peek. Next week when the story is released, come back here to check out what happens. Have a very Merry Christmas.
This town is quiet when it's late here. This town is quiet when the night is getting close. I'm outside, gonna stay here. I'm outside until you tell me to stop. I'm being so dramatic. I'm always being so dramatic. This town is quiet when it's late here. This This town is quiet. Sickness, I can see the moon. I know that I'll be fine here. Things get complicated, but I know we'll be alright. Yeah. You will tell me I'm wrong, but I know we are strong. A sickness, I can see the moon. I know that I'll be fine here. This town is quiet when it's cold, yeah. This town is quiet.